According to the Sonari's divine source, and as written in Testaments of God by Teme, we are all connected to the divine or the source. The Sonari's divine source picture shows that no one, city, nation, or religion has the divine. Instead, we are all connected to the source. If you look closely, you will also observe that even the cultural gods do not have a special place with regard to the source. All creatures, humans, saviors, gods, bodhisattvas, and Buddhas are equally connected to the source. Given this connection with the source, it is safe to assume that our experiences with the source are bound to be different from person to person and from nation to nation. If this is the case, why do you continue to see the divine in the eyes of foreign texts when you could also write your own experiences for the benefit of your children and the world? For the most part, children from nations that use foreign sacred texts do not know about their sacred story unless it is taught in the schools. If you grew up in the 1950s in Nigeria, for example, you probably did not learn about your sacred story even in the schools. I started learning about the Bible in the elementary school at the exclusion of the sacred story of my people. Let this not happen again, and let us begin to raise our children with our own sacred stories, instead of the sacred stories of other cultures. This is not to imply that we should get rid of all foreign sacred texts now that we know the truth. Instead, we should continue to learn from foreign sacred texts, but our sacred texts must occupy a superior position as compared to the foreign sacred texts. Consider India and China as examples. Both nations trade with other nations and exchange ideas with other nations, but no foreign texts dominate their spiritual life as we have in the countries of Africa and South America. Now that you know, it is time to replace all foreign sacred texts with your sacred text and share your spiritual wisdom with the world. The source is really not a god, but an essence. This essence pervades the universe. It has no sacred texts, and it has no chosen people but loves all creatures without conditions. If you were raised in a foreign religion with the foreigners being the chosen people, you might be reluctant to believe that the divine has no chosen people. But have you thought about what it makes you if a god has a chosen people? It makes you a slave or a second-class citizen of the world. But you are neither a slave nor a second-class citizen. You are as good as any other creature on the planet. The idea of a chosen people is a human creation, like the skewed interpretation of the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. In the same way, they wrote the sacred text, and they made themselves chosen, so that you will always be inferior to them, but more importantly, you will always pay them for their contributions. However, this is not to deny the fact that cultural gods love their people more than others, but there is a big difference between the cultural gods and the divine. Why do you want to worship a foreign cultural god in the presence of your cultural gods and the divine? Cultural gods are gods that originated from particular cultures or nations. They are not universal gods, they are discriminative, and they take sides in human conflicts. The Tanakh recounts how the God of the Tanakh took the side of the Israelites during a war with their neighbors, as written in the book of Joshua 10:11 of the Tanakh, or the Old Testament of the Bible. As they fled before Israel on the road down from Beth Horon to Azekah, the Lord hurled large hailstones down on them from the sky, and more of them died from the hailstones than were killed by the swords of the Israelites. Most cultures have their own cultural gods, and I remember my mother telling me stories about the cultural gods of my people. In the main, the cultural gods of my people were not different from the cultural god of the Israelites. Cultural gods protect their people, and as such, they take the side of their people in any conflict with other cultures. This is not strange because that is what cultural gods do. They protect their people. Both the Arabs and the Europeans played a significant role in portraying their cultural gods as God and forcing other cultures to worship the foreign gods instead of their native gods. For the record, it is written that the Arabs did not directly force the natives to worship Allah because they were mostly interested in the administrative control of the region, but the people still ended up worshiping Allah. Consequently, we have the influence of Islam in Africa, Asia, and Europe today. The Europeans, on the other hand, took an active interest in preaching Jesus as the savior of the world and probably forced natives to accept the foreign god. Today, Christianity has reached all the continents, and it is the world's most popular religion. However, one cannot help asking if the world has really changed for good because of these religions. If you look at the state of the world in the midst of many wars and nuclear threat, it is evident that there is still a lot of work to be done. Further, the religions have not produced a corresponding spiritual growth in the people because they still preach discrimination and exclusivity when there is clear evidence that we are here to take care of each other. In the main, cultural gods separate us, and what separates us cannot really be good for us. The source, on the other hand, unites us. Thus, instead of a cultural god being the way, we can now say with full confidence and understanding that the source is the way. The universe sends us rain to water our crops without conditions. It sends snow and invites all people to play. It makes the sun shine on all creatures, and most importantly, it lets us breathe air freely irrespective of what we have done or not done. Can you imagine a cultural god being in control of the air we breathe? It is as clear as day and night that if you do not believe, there will be no air to breathe. So, my dear brothers and sisters, rejoice that the cultural gods are not in control of the things that matter in our lives. All the same, the cultural gods are not entirely useless because people believe in them, and we should respect that. So my proposition is for the cultural gods to remain as cultural icons for now in their cultures, while the source unites all of us. Here are some of the popular cultural gods: Allah, Buddha, Jesus, Yahweh, Krishna, Vishnu, Shiva, Olorun, Avalokiteshvara, Amitabha, Chenrezig, and Guanyin. However, most religions portray their gods as the source irrespective of the fact that they are culture-bound. Thus, the rest of the video will deconstruct the God of the Bible and put this debate to rest. The question is, does the God of the Bible represent a universal, transcendent, divine reality, or a culturally constructed deity shaped by the historical, political, and social contexts of the ancient Near East? Through historical, literary, and theological analysis, this study argues that the biblical portrayal of God reflects the evolving identity, survival needs, and power structures of the Hebrew people. By deconstructing traditional claims of divine universality, the video invites you to reconsider God not as a fixed, eternal character, but as a culturally mediated concept, one that has been universalized through conquest, colonization, and religious authority. This reframing opens space for a more inclusive and human-centered spiritual imagination. For centuries, the God of the Bible has been presented as the one true, universal, and unchanging deity, transcending culture, geography, and time. This assumption has shaped theology, politics, morality, and global power structures. Yet a closer examination of the biblical text raises an important question. Is the God of the Bible truly universal, or is this God a product of a specific culture responding to its historical circumstances? Deconstruction does not seek to destroy faith, but to uncover its foundations. By examining the origins, evolution, and portrayal of the biblical God, we can better understand how religious ideas are shaped, and how they, in turn, shape societies. The Bible did not emerge in a vacuum. It was written over centuries by different authors within specific cultural and political environments. Ancient Israel existed among polytheistic societies such as the Canaanites, Babylonians, Egyptians, and Assyrians, each with their own pantheons. Early biblical texts reveal that Israel's God, Yahweh, was originally understood as one deity among many. "You shall have no other gods before me." Exodus 20:3 assumes the existence of other gods. "Who is like you among the gods, O Yahweh?" Exodus 15:11 reflects comparative theology, not monotheistic exclusivity. These passages suggest monolatry, the worship of one God without denying the existence of others, rather than strict monotheism. Yahweh appears as a tribal deity, concerned primarily with Israel's survival, land, and identity. As Israel faced invasion, exile, and political instability, the character of God evolved. Warrior God during conquest narratives, Joshua. Lawgiver and judge during nation building, Deuteronomy. punishing God during exile, Jeremiah, Ezekiel. Restoring God during post-exilic periods, Isaiah. Each portrayal corresponds to the community's psychological and social needs at the time. God becomes a mirror of human fear, hope, trauma, and aspiration. Rather than shaping culture from outside, the biblical God appears shaped by culture from within. One of the strongest indicators of cultural construction is the moral inconsistency of the biblical God. The same deity who commands love and justice also orders genocide, slavery, and collective punishment. The destruction of the Canaanites, Deuteronomy 20. The killing of Egyptian firstborns, Exodus 12. The endorsement of slavery, Leviticus 25. These actions align closely with ancient war ethics, not timeless moral truths. When read critically, these narratives reflect the worldview of ancient societies struggling for dominance and survival, rather than a universally moral deity. The transition from a localized God to a universal one occurred gradually. After the Babylonian exile, Israel reinterpreted its theology to explain national defeat. Yahweh was no longer merely Israel's God, but the only God, sovereign over all nations. This shift laid the groundwork for later Christian universalism and eventually for imperial religion. The universalization of a cultural God allowed religious ideas to be exported, enforced, and weaponized, often at the expense of indigenous spiritual systems. In the New Testament, Jesus presents a radically different image of God, less tribal, less violent, and more relational. However, even this portrayal must be understood within a first-century Jewish context under Roman occupation. Later Christian theology often merged Jesus' teachings with earlier Hebrew concepts, creating internal tensions within the biblical portrayal of God. These contradictions suggest theological evolution rather than divine immutability. The claim that the God of the Bible is universal has historically justified colonial expansion, cultural erasure, economic exploitation, and spiritual hierarchy. By presenting one culture's God as supreme, other people's spiritual systems were delegitimized. Deconstructing the biblical God as a cultural construct exposes how theology has been used as a tool of dominance rather than liberation. Recognizing the God of the Bible as culturally shaped does not require abandoning spirituality. Instead, it invites a broader understanding of the divine. God as collective human wisdom, God as relational consciousness, God as ethical imagination, God as life itself. Such perspectives honor the sacred stories of all cultures and affirm that no single tradition holds a monopoly on truth. The God of the Bible, when examined historically and critically, emerges not as a timeless, culture-free being, but as a deity shaped by the lived experiences of a specific people. This does not diminish the Bible's value, rather, it humanizes it. Deconstruction allows us to move from inherited absolutes toward conscious spirituality, one rooted in empathy, justice, and shared humanity. Ultimately, the Bible may be seen less as a static portrait of a deity and more as a dynamic dialogue between a changing culture and its evolving understanding of the sacred. What are your thoughts on the God of the Bible? Is the God of the Bible a cultural God or a universal, transcendent divine reality? Drop your comments below, and if this resonates with you, subscribe for more insights on the transformation of consciousness.